Hey everybody, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Kristin Greenlee Design Library Curriculum Planner. So the first thing you're going to do, of course, is import your documents. I keep mine in my iCloud Drive. You could keep yours in your Google or anywhere else. You're going to import it as a document. I'm going to go ahead and import both the timeline and the student notebook. When you buy this set, it does come as a set of two. And the reason for that is that for the most part, I'm going to recommend that you have your students create their timeline in this separate timeline document. And the reason for that is that year over year, as they move through the levels, they can add to it and see how what they're learning relates. However, I have included the timeline also in the notebook. And that's for people who really aren't sure they're going to do more than 1 year. Maybe they just like the idea of having only the timeline figures from this specific level in that specific notebook. So I have made it where you can use either option. But again, I'm going to recommend that you use the library curriculum timeline notebook as its own separate document that you build on year over year. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the library curriculum student notebook. The first thing you would do is to go ahead and use your pen tool or your type tool, either one, and you could go ahead and label this with your student. That way, if you have more than one more than one student, you would import a notebook for each student if you're using the same device or the same Zoomnotes application. Now, I do have a separate walkthrough for GoodNotes users, and there's lots of other programs like Notability, NoteShelf, Microsoft OneNote, basically any PDF annotating program you could use. What you've purchased is a hyperlinked interactive PDF. So it can be used in a lot of different programs, but these are the two that I like to use. And I'll say that Zoomnotes has a little bit steeper learning curve. The interface, because it has so many more features, is a little bit more complicated. And you'll notice that the tools might look different because you can set up your own individual workspace and put buttons where you want to put them. So of course mine may look very different than yours. And I will link in the description some really good Zoomnotes tutorials that helped me learn. I'm still actually pretty new with Zoomnotes, but I'm loving it so far, mostly because of the added functionality, especially with this particular type of notebook. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to grab my laser tool here, and once you click on the front page, you'll get brought to the index. Along the top row are kind of the main tabs, and then on the right side are the tabs for your student notebooking. So I'll go ahead and show you the timeline. So I did include, like I said, the full timeline that's hyperlinked. You can click on any of these. Any of these tabs will take you directly to that page. And they can just go anywhere from the timeline tab up at the top and go right back and just easily navigate within. Now, if you switch to your scrolling, let's see, second row here, it's the third one, you can easily scroll and see how the different dates sort of line up across the multiple pages. All right, let's take a look at the book list. I've provided a book list in two different templates. One is for 50 books. We're going to be doing Build Your Library 8 this year, and it has 46 books. It's a pretty beefy level. So I will probably use this one. But if you have a smaller book list, you may want to jump over to the next page, which has 30. So it just gives you a little bit more room to write. And of course, there's always the option to duplicate this page and use, make it 2 pages if you have more than 30. But I'm fine with the smaller. I'll just kind of zoom in. And I can either hand write my books and then tell my child where he should get it. We actually own that, so I'm going to say it's on the shelf. But the other option you have is to use the type tool, and you could put in, and I'm just doing this real fast. Oops, let me lengthen this out. So you could type, I can actually grab with the blue dot here. And then I could say where we would want to find that. Click off of that. And I could tell my child that I actually have that reserved at the library. And I could even say which library. We have several libraries in our community that we can use. And I could say that it's available on the 15th. And then my child would know that every time a book is referenced in the curriculum, they could come tap on this book list page and look and see where I expect them to find that particular book. So this could be really helpful for those of you who are using a variety of resources, Kindle, audio, Learning Ally, Scribes, libraries, some of them you own, all these different resources. This can help your child know exactly where to find them. Okay, a huge part of a library style curriculum is definitely the curriculum. So if you click on this curriculum page, you'll see that I have a note here about the different ways you can approach this, but I'm going to tell you what I recommend specifically for Zoomnotes. Again, GoodNotes, I have a different walkthrough. It's a little bit different of a process, but one of the really cool things about Zoomnotes is the ability to add sub-documents. So what that means is that I can come up here and I have my sub-document tool up on my toolbar, but I'm going to open the toolbar just so you can see it. Down at the bottom under miscellaneous, this 4th one over says import PDF subdoc. So what I'm going to do is I keep my curriculum that I purchased in my iCloud. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find that. And the neat thing is that when I import it, what it's going to do is drop it right into this page as a sub document. And you can see when it pops up, you can kind of move it around. I'm going to actually size mine so that it kind of covers up some of that text, get it centered. Now, this entire Build Your Library level PDF is now part of a subdocument of this notebook. So you can see over here on the right on the page navigation, there's several little papers, and in the middle you see a gray box that's a piece of paper with an arrow, and right now it says 0. And what that means is that it is representative of that I'm on the main level of my notebook, the student notebook. But if I go and I double click on the subdocument, now you can see that gray box over here on the right now has a 1 because now I am down a level. And now I can actually page through the curriculum and I can click the multi-paper to get to the thumbnail. So what you may want to do is delete these first several pages, just if you don't want your kid having to kind of scroll through the parts that are really for parents and the setup. But the neat thing is that once you click on a page, it's going to leave that page up. Let me get out of the subdocument again by clicking this paper with a box with the arrow on the right-hand side of my screen. And now you can see that I have the page that I left it on, the page I clicked on, is now the page that I would see when I click around. So let me just tap on any of these other ones, and then I'm going to tap back on curriculum, and you'll see that it's still there on the page that I left it on. And then all they need to do is double click, and they can go to the next page, press that little arrow button, and boom, they can see what they need to see. So you can drop the curriculum right into the notebook. This is very, very handy for your kids to refer to. Now, let's talk about how exactly they're going to use the notebook part of this. So we're going to talk about the tabs here on the right-hand side. So on vocabulary and notes, you'll see the first step is going to go toward a divider, and I can either use these page arrows to arrow over one, or like I said earlier, I could go back over to my tools and grab my scroll tool, and then you can kind of easily flip between the pages. So it's just a personal preference on what you want to be able to do or how you like to use it. I've included several different vocabulary and notes templates in here for your student to do their notebooking. So this is an example of a large area to write with one vocabulary word on a page. And then I have the same idea, but now there's 4 on a page. This is a more detailed vocabulary sheet, a little bit more similar to the way Torchlight asked them to do vocabulary. And then we also have a space where your student could just copy and paste their curriculum, their vocabulary words. So again, I'm going to click on curriculum. Here's some notes and vocabulary. I'll double click. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the tools, and I'm going to use this, let's see, almost at the bottom, next up to the top is called image tools. And on the very far side, there's grab image. So I'm going to do that. It's going to bring up a box. I can resize this box to just capture this vocabulary. I'm just going to long hold, click copy. I'm going to get out of my subdocument here. I'm going to go back to my notes and vocabulary page, scroll over, and say you just want them to copy and paste. You would long click. Oh, whoops, got to get off the laser pointer. They would long click and click paste, and then they could easily resize this, move it around. You could have them copy and paste and then still handwrite right below it. You could say, highlight the words as you find them in your reading, however you want to handle vocabulary. There's a lot of different options here. Let's page over. You can see that there's also a place for them to just write, just straight up handwrite. Let's see, this is a place for notes and questions in case they like the grid paper better. So let's click back over to curriculum. You can see that there's often going to be questions. Again, I'm going to grab my grab tool. And here are some notes and questions. I'm going to copy these over, jump back over to my vocabulary and notes pages. I could use any of these. I'm going to paste, just holding to paste. Now my questions are here. You could even tell them, okay, number the questions and then answer them below. So then they could come down here and say, describe the stone cutting shop, and they could write, if you have a stylus, they could handwrite, stone cutting shop is blah, blah, blah. Or I actually have a child that has dyslexia and dysgraphia. And so one of the reasons we like digital notebooking is to be able to leverage some of the amazing tools that digital has to offer. First of all, it's low risk because it's easy to grab the eraser, and make a quick adjustment. So just even that itself, for those of you who have perfectionist kids, that can really help. But we can also type. So I could take my type tool, line it up here with my lines, and I can change the size of the text, all that fun stuff, change the font. But so then if you have a kid who's working on their typing skills, they could start typing here. Oops, had a weird autocorrect. Okay, but the other really neat thing is if you notice on my keyboard down at the bottom, there's a little microphone. I'm working on an iPad, and so the tablet has the Siri dictation built in. And so your student can actually click on that and speech to text. So if you have a younger child or a child that has some learning differences, this could be huge for them to be able to speech to text, to type out their answers to some of the questions. So you have lots of options in terms of handwriting, type, or speech to text. Okay, let's page through. Again, I have just some basic blank pages. Then we have narrations. Most Charlotte Mason-based curriculums, are going to have some variation of the idea of narration. And so these cards are just kind of some basic narrations that I've included for you in case you have a curriculum that doesn't have one. This would be things that the kids do based on the readers of their own reading. And they could be something simple like tell back what you read or heard in your own words or summarize. And then there's also little projects and such. And here's where the power of Zoomnotes is really, really neat to leverage. So say you want to have them mark through. Let's grab the pen tool and say draw a scene from the reading and include a caption. So say that's what they're going to do today. I would have my student mark through and date. Then he would page over to a blank page. Say he wanted to use the dot grid, and that's where he could, use the pen tool, draw a scene from the book, whatever. He can use this little spray can, do his drawing, write his caption, date this page, and, we're good to go. And then I can check that later. But let's go back to the narrations here. One of the other really cool things about Zoomnotes is the ability to add audio files. So if you look here at the top left, on kind of the second row, there is a little audio toolbar with a microphone. So what you can do is actually press the microphone, have your child speak, and then it's going to create this little audio file. They can then put that on top. So say they did this one, tell back what you learned. You could have a younger child who's maybe working with you on math while you have another child who needs to be doing their narration, but you can't listen right this second, or you just want it documented because it's adorable. So you can have them record their narration and then leave it right here on the narration chart and then just come back in and date it. And then later, as the parent, when you have time, you can listen to it. So this is just another really cool, unique way that you can leverage this technology and have your kiddos do some of their verbal work, especially in the lower levels of Build Your Library. Most of the narrations are not written. And then as you get into some of the older levels, they start to transition to doing some writing. But that way you can include both. Let's navigate over. So I did provide a blank grid if you want to write your own narration cards, or I'm going to click back over to the curriculum. Build Your Library does provide narration cards for each level. So say you want to use the ones that came with it. Again, I'm going to grab my grab image tool. I'm going to resize it. I'm going to copy. I'm going to jump out of my subdocument by clicking on the right-hand side. I'm going to jump back over to narrations. And all I have to do is long hold, copy, and paste. And now I can resize this on this page. I might stretch it just a little. And boom. Now I have the narrations that came specifically with the level that I'm working on. And again, your child can mark on this on top of it. You could, I don't know, spray can them red when they're done with it. Just come up with your own system. Be creative. Let your kids have fun doing their schoolwork. And as I page over, you'll see there's several pages for your narrations so that they can use whatever they need to actually get them done. For instance, one of them says build a diorama. So I may have my child build the diorama and then they could actually take a picture by using the insert image tool here, using the camera, 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, and take a picture. And then it's documented. And then you have this as this digital notebook works as a portfolio for all of their work throughout the year. All right, let's keep moving through our tabs. We have activity tabs. So a lot of the different curriculums come with various activity pages, little, projects that it asks them to do or worksheets that it asks them to fill out. So again, I've included some templates where they can have blank space. But if there's a page they need to copy in, again, I'm going to click on curriculum. I'm going to double tap on my subdocument. I'm going to find an activity page. And this might be something, depending on how young your students are, that you may want to set up the activity pages real quick for them before they get going in the curriculum. Or you may have an older kid who's totally, you could teach this process to, they'll pick it up really quick, who will be able to do it themselves. Just this little, copy and paste process. So you long hold, again, get out of the subdocument. We're going to go back to our activities, page over. We'll go on to the blank page. And long hold, paste, go ahead and resize. I'm always going to be encouraging my kiddos to date their pages just so I can keep up with what's what. So they might date that up here. And then they could, draw, color, and actually do their activity page. And again, for those perfectionist kids, easy to erase and change until it looks the way they want it to look. So any of the activities can easily happen in this activities tab. All right, let's go to map work. Map work is going to work the exact same way. So I would just go back again. I'm not going to go through that whole process, but I could just double click, find my map page, bring that over, and copy it into my map section, and then I'm good to go. Super simple. Oops. And then we have memory work. Most of the Charlotte Mason-based curriculums are going to include some type of memory work. So I just left a page where your student could type the poem or the list that they're memorizing. They could handwrite it. And then when their curriculum directs them to refer back to it to practice their memorization, they can just jump over to this page and keep going. And as they do more and more through the year, they would just duplicate this page. And let me go ahead and show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on the page navigation into this little stack of papers. And anytime you have a page, you can easily duplicate. So I'm going to come over here to memory work. I already left 2 pages in there for you. But at the top, I'm going to click edit. I'm going to select one of these pages. And then all I'm going to do is right up here at the top, I'm going to click copy to, and if I leave it as 26, it will just replace the page that it's currently on, which is fine. I'm going to click copy. And now you can see, I'm going to click done at the top. You can see on memory work, there is now going to be 3 of these pages. 1, 2, 3. All right, the science tab. Many of the curriculums either include science or ask you to include your own science. After talking with some other parents, there was definitely the need to have a place for the science stuff in their notebook. So I included a tab there. I went ahead and included a really nice, minimally designed, pretty lab report that they could come in and again use speech to text, type, or handwrite. And then, of course, also some blank pages that you could have them draw diagrams or sketches, anything related to their science curriculum. All right, let's talk a little bit more about how we would use the timeline notebook. Again, if I'm in my student notebook and I click timeline, there's an option right there. You could do it right within this. But if we wanted to take advantage of using the same notebook year after year for the timeline and then keeping a new notebook for each level of the student notebook, then we would go over here. Let me switch at the top to the library curriculum timeline notebook. And it's going to look the same for the most part, except for along the right, instead of all of those notebook pages or notebook dividers, it now has timeline, index, ancients, medieval, early modern, modern, and a spot for your timeline figures. So this aspect works the same way. Everything from the index is hyperlinked. But you also have these tabs on the side that can get you jumping into that section as well pretty quickly. And then in the timeline figures tab, this is again where you can take advantage of the subdocument. So I'll show you that one more time. It's down here in miscellaneous, import subdocument. I keep mine in my iCloud. I actually downloaded these Build Your Library 8 timeline figures from the Facebook group. Somebody had made them. Now, the Build Your Library curriculum actually comes with some really simple black and white timeline figures within the curriculum, but I know my kiddo will really love using these colorful ones, so that someone was nice enough to share. And so I'm going to import these as a subdocument. And now you can again see if I double click on it, it'll take me inside, and there's actually 4 pages of figures in here. So again, I'm going to grab my grab tool. Let's find a figure. How about Miss Queen Victoria? We will put this box right around her. Then we're going to long press. If it moves at all, it gets kind of weird. Okay, so I've copied that. I'm going to jump out of my subdocument using this arrow on the side here. And now I can either use my index. Let's see, she was 1838, so let's go find that. That would be in our early modern history. There we go. She is going to get dropped here. I'm going to click paste. I can resize her and put her wherever we think she should go, probably war and politics. So we could put her there. And one of the greatest things about using a digital timeline is the ability for you to easily add and move things around. Nothing is worse than a timeline figure being glued down, and now I need to really squeeze something in between these two. And when you're doing digital, we can change the size, we can move them around. You could even have your kiddo, write some kind of little note with the pen tool, beside it. Anything that you want them to do, they can. And so I keep the timeline figures again in here as a subdocument so they can go get them pretty easily and quickly. Okay, so now we're using the timeline notebook separately. And you'll see at the top of this notebook, I have a tab that says Notebook. So one of the neat things about using Zoomnotes is the ability to add hyperlinks after you've already imported a document, which GoodNotes, as of right now, does not allow. I'm hoping that's something that they'll add. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this polygon tool. It looks like an oval. And I already have my favorite style saved, but what basically all it is a rectangle, and I have it saved as no fill. Okay, we don't want any fill, no border. Okay, and so then you can come and draw this polygon on top of the notebook tab. And then we're going to click on it and we're going to say link. And we're going to say web. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually jump back over to our library curriculum notebook. And up at the top, there's this Z, that's our document properties. If you don't see yours, then you can, again, click on the toolbar. It's at the bottom, document properties. And Zoomnotes provides this address for every document that you import. So I'm going to say copy link to pasteboard. Click done. I'm going to go back over to my timeline notebook. I'm going to grab that shape, that polygon that we dropped in, and I'm going to say link to web. I'm going to paste it. Oh, sorry, I meant to mention, we actually need to do that on a master layer. So Zoomnotes has these 3 little stacks. Sometimes you'll find that button down here, over here. Again, you can always get to it in the toolbar if you need to. But these 3 little stacks represent your layers. And because I want this notebook link to work from any page in the notebook, what I actually need to do is go to my master layers, create a new master layer. I can just title that, say, Notebook tab. Click back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that my current layer. I'm going to unlock it, make that my current layer. And click off of it. So now I've put that polygon shape. Now it's going to apply it across all of the pages in my notebook. And I think, let's see, we will have to, we have to lock it on that page first. Let me do that real quick. So I'm going to switch the current. Oops. I'm still a Zoomnotes new user myself, so I'm learning right along with you. But I got it to work yesterday. Let's see. So what I need to do is, yes, I'm going to now switch back to my visible layer, and then I'm going to lock that notebook tab, and then that is when it will apply it to the rest of our pages. So now when I click notebook, well, sorry guys, let's try this again. Oh, it did switch to my curriculum notebook. Let's see. If I click on it, boom, it did. It was working. It was just being a little laggy. So it switched me right back over to my library curriculum student notebook. So from the timeline, they can now click and get directly into their student notebook. And if you do not want them using the timeline tab in this notebook, you want them to go back over to that timeline book, then what we're going to do is do the same process. I'm going to open up my links. I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to create a master layer. I'm going to title this master layer Timeline tab. Click back. I am now going to make that my current. I'm going to unlock it. Make it my current. I'm going to go back over to my timeline notebook. I'm going to find that link, copy to pasteboard. Now I'm going to draw that polygon. This time I'm going to draw it over the timeline tab. And I'm going to link it. Link to web, paste. Go back to my layers. Lock that master layer so that it will apply to all of the pages. And now you can see when I click around, it's being laggy again. There it goes. It went directly back to my timeline notebook. So now they're both connected to each other. I forgot to change the fill and everything on that box that I just drew because I was trying to do it quickly for you. But now you can see that they'll immediately know to just go back into that timeline notebook. And you could even cover up these other tabs with anything else that you might want. You could put anything you want here. If you don't want them using the timeline that comes in the student notebook and you want them to only use the timeline book that they'll use year after year, you could cover that, put anything you wanted on top of that page. Like say I could do any kind of little shape and then they wouldn't even realize. Make it 100% opacity. They wouldn't even realize that those links are there. So I tried to make it flexible for you guys so that if you wanted your kids to be able to notebook directly into a different timeline notebook, then you could. So that's probably the most complicated part of this is just creating those two links, but really it's not that difficult. Let me know if you have questions. But there's your walkthrough of how to digitally notebook for a library style curriculum, both with a timeline and a student binder in Zoomnotes. Again, if you're working in a different program, you'll want to refer to the information and maybe find some YouTube tutorials for those other programs. I do have a walkthrough for GoodNotes users. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it helped, and I can't wait to see what your kids create. Definitely share those and tag Kristin Greenlee Designs, and I'd love to see them. Take care. Bye-bye.